My bridesmaid shamed me at my reception with a filthy lie. Her boyfriend left her after 3 weeks, and she has no idea why. Have you ever stood at the altar, looking into the eyes of the person you love, only to have your oldest friend, someone you've known since kindergarten, unleash a nightmare that shatters everything you hold sacred? My wedding day was supposed to be a dream come true. Instead, it became a public humiliation that nearly destroyed my marriage before it even began, and unleashed a torrent of revenge that left everyone reeling, including me. From the time I was a little girl, I knew my wedding day would be special. I grew up in a faith that taught waiting for marriage was a beautiful, sacred choice, and even when I started questioning other parts of my upbringing, that one value stayed with me. It was a core part of who I was. My husband, Theo, knew this from our very first serious conversation. I told him I was a virgin and intended to stay that way until our wedding night, and he truly got it. He never pressured me, never made me feel strange. He said he loved me for me, and my values were a part of that. We dated for 3 incredible years before he proposed, and our wedding was set for 18 months later. I wanted everything to be perfect, a reflection of who I was. Classy, thoughtful, intentional. The venue was a garden estate, blooming with white roses. The colors were soft ivory and gold. Every detail was chosen with love. I even asked my childhood friend, Gemma, to be a bridesmaid. We'd known each other since kindergarten, but we drifted. Gemma had become a different person, constantly partying, crude jokes, a new guy every other week. I didn't judge her life, but we just didn't connect anymore. Still, I thought for one day she could put that aside and support me. I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Theo cried when he saw me walk down the aisle. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, and my grandmother's ring slid onto my finger. It was exactly as I'd imagined. Pure. Perfect. Then the reception started, and Gemma decided it was her turn for the spotlight. I had no idea about the cake until it was too late. Gemma had arranged for a secondary cake, telling the catering staff it was a surprise from the bridal party. Nobody thought to question it. Bridesmaids do silly surprises sometimes, right? But this wasn't silly. This cake was shaped like a male body part. Explicitly, vulgar, unmistakable. It was also dark chocolate, which became relevant in the most horrific way. Gemma grabbed the microphone. "Surprise!" she screeched, wheeling out the cake herself. "My special gift to the bride." And then she said the words that burned into my memory, words I will never forget. "It's big and black, just how she likes it." She dissolved into laughter, like it was the funniest thing anyone had ever said. A few people offered uncomfortable chuckles. Most just stared in horror. My grandmother clutched her chest. Theo's parents looked at me with pure confusion, their faces a blank canvas of shock. My mother started openly weeping. My new husband, my beautiful Theo, just looked at me, trying to understand what was happening, his eyes searching mine. I stood there in my pristine white dress, watching everything I'd planned, everything I believed in, fall apart because my bridesmaid had decided to humiliate me with a lie. I had never been with anyone, ever. Gemma knew this. I'd confided in her years ago, during a conversation about our different choices. She knew I was waiting. She knew that cake, those words, were complete fabrications designed to shock my family and embarrass me in front of everyone I loved. And she did it anyway because she thought it was funny. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked over to her, my voice surprisingly steady. "Gemma, leave." She just laughed a shrill, awful sound. "Oh, come on, lighten up. It's just a joke. Everyone knows bachelorette parties have stuff like this." My blood ran cold. "This isn't a bachelorette party," I said, my voice tight. "This is my wedding reception, with my grandparents, with my husband's conservative family, with my church community." She rolled her eyes. "You're always so uptight." I told her again, my gaze unwavering, "Leave." This time, she finally seemed to get it. Her smirk faltered. She grabbed her purse, muttering about how I couldn't take a joke, and stormed out. The catering staff whisked the cake away immediately. Theo's brother, bless his heart, made a quick announcement about a misunderstanding and tried to get the party back on track. People tried to move on, but the damage was done. My wedding night wasn't spent celebrating. It was spent answering whispered questions, explaining to relatives that Gemma's comment was a lie. My grandmother asked me directly if I'd been living a double life. My father-in-law avoided eye contact. My mother kept apologizing as if it was her fault. Theo held my hand the entire time, defending me, telling everyone who would listen that I was exactly who I'd always said I was. He was my rock, but his words couldn't erase the stain. We left for our honeymoon 2 days later. I tried so hard to forget Gemma, to focus on starting my marriage. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that cake, I heard those words. She had taken something sacred from me. Not my virginity, that was still mine to give to my husband, but my wedding day. My sense of peace. 2 months after the honeymoon, my phone rang. It was Gemma's sister. She sounded furious. "Why did you do that to her?" she demanded. I had no idea what she was talking about. Then she started sending screenshots. My phone screen filled with message after message. Gemma's face, right next to that horrible cake. The image was everywhere, on platforms I didn't even know existed. Someone had posted to her company's internal feedback portal with photos from the reception. An anonymous account sent detailed descriptions to her apartment building's community board. A third contacted her extended family through Facebook, tagging aunts, uncles, and cousins in posts that meticulously described what she'd done at my wedding. The messages were identical. Factual, dry, listing the date, the location, the exact words she'd said. No exaggeration, no emotion, just the plain, brutal truth, repeated over and over to everyone who knew her. I scrolled through dozens of screenshots from different platforms, different anonymous usernames, all created within the same week. Whoever did this had planned it carefully, methodically, destroying every part of Gemma's life with surgical precision. My hands shook as I called her sister back. She answered on the first ring, and I started talking before she could accuse me again. I told her I'd been on my honeymoon in Greece for 2 weeks, that I had plane tickets and hotel receipts to prove I wasn't anywhere near a computer. She interrupted, bitter. "Doesn't matter. You could have set it up before you left, or hired someone." I asked why she thought I'd spend my honeymoon obsessing over Gemma, when I'd been trying to forget the whole disaster. She laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Gemma lost her marketing job yesterday. Her boss got 3 separate emails from anonymous accounts detailing her poor judgment and character. Archer broke up with her 3 weeks ago, packed his stuff, and left. Half her friends won't return her calls." Before I could respond, she hung up. I found Theo in our bedroom, folding laundry, looking completely normal. I showed him the screenshots, wordlessly. He took my phone, sat on the edge of the bed, and scrolled through each image. His face was completely blank, a mask I'd never seen before. Then it shifted. Confusion, then understanding, then something cold, utterly foreign to me. When he finally looked up, his eyes were like ice. "Did you know anything about this revenge campaign?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He handed my phone back. "No," he said flatly. "I didn't do it, but I'm not sorry it happened." That flatness, that absolute lack of emotion, scared me more than anger would have. This was Theo who cried at animal shelter commercials, who apologized to furniture when he bumped into it, who sent thank you cards to everyone. The person sitting before me sounded capable of anything. I spent the next 2 days at our dining table, laptop open, notebooks everywhere. I made a list of every single person who attended our wedding. 217 guests, 12 catering staff, the venue coordinator, the photographers. Anyone could have witnessed it. Anyone could have told someone. I started a spreadsheet. Who had technical skills? Who had the time? Who hated Gemma enough? The list grew. I added columns for motive, opportunity means. It felt like I was solving a crime. The systematic nature of the campaign screamed technical knowledge. Someone who knew how to create anonymous accounts, use VPNs, coordinate across platforms. That eliminated most of my relatives, but it opened up possibilities I didn't want to consider. Theo's brother called on the third day. "Have you heard about the Gemma situation?" he asked. My stomach dropped. He explained that wedding guests were sharing the story in private Facebook groups, shocked by the cruelty, but most agreed Gemma got what she deserved. Then he paused. "A few people are asking if you orchestrated it." I slid to the kitchen floor. My legs wouldn't hold me. The idea that my wedding disaster was now internet entertainment, that I was a suspect, made me sick. I told Theo's brother I had nothing to do with it. He said he believed me, but I heard the doubt in his voice. Then Nicolette, an old friend, texted asking to meet for coffee. I hadn't talked to her since the wedding. We met near her office. She hugged me tight. "Gemma's been calling me, crying," she said. "Someone's systematically destroying her life." I stirred sugar into my coffee, bracing myself for the accusation, but didn't come. Instead, she confirmed everything I'd already heard. Gemma lost her job. Archer left her without a word. Her friends were split. Nicolette watched me, studying my face for any reaction. It hit me then, the timeline. Whoever did this started almost immediately after our wedding. While Theo and I were on our honeymoon, trying to salvage something good, the gears of revenge were already turning. That evening, an anonymous email arrived. No subject, no text, just an attachment, timeline.pdf. I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me click. It was a professionally formatted spreadsheet. Every message sent about Gemma, organized by date, platform, recipient. Columns read: date, platform, target, account used, message type, confirmation of receipt. Rows and rows of data, tracking the entire campaign for 3 weeks. Someone had contacted her employer's anonymous tip line 3 times. Her apartment complex manager received concerns about her behavior. 14 different friends got detailed accounts of the wedding incident. At the bottom of the last page, a single, bold line made my hands shake. "She humiliated you in front of everyone you love. Now she knows how that feels." I tried to trace the email, but it led nowhere. Encrypted. Anonymous. 2 days later, my mother showed up at my door unannounced. Her face was red and puffy. I knew something was terribly wrong. She came inside, sat on my couch, and just broke down. Between sobs, she told me church members had been asking her questions. Someone had apparently told the pastor that Gemma's life fell apart suspiciously fast after the wedding, right around when we left for Greece. Now, people were whispering, was this how good people should behave? Was revenge ever justified? Had our family crossed a line? My mother grabbed my hands, begging me to tell her I had nothing to do with it. The fact that my own mother needed reassurance that I wasn't capable of this cruelty, it broke something inside me. 3 days later, Lana, Theo's mother, called. She wanted to meet for lunch, just us, in a quiet restaurant booth. She ordered for both of us without looking at the menu. Then she dropped her own bombshell. She'd overheard Theo on the phone 2 weeks after our wedding. He was talking to someone about making sure everyone knows what kind of person she really is. She said she didn't think much of it at the time. People say things when they're angry. But now, with everything that had happened to Gemma, she was worried. Worried her son might have done something he couldn't take back. The way she watched me, protective and cautious at the same time, made me realize she was trying to warn me about my own husband. I confronted Theo that night. I told him exactly what his mother had overheard. He stopped loading the dishwasher, his jaw tight, and turned to face me. "Did you orchestrate this campaign against Gemma?" I asked. "No," he said, and I could see he was telling the truth. But when I pushed harder, asking if he knew anything at all, he admitted he was angry enough to want revenge. He said He called a few mutual friends after the wedding to make sure they knew the full story of what Gemma did. He wanted people to understand why we left the reception early, why I spent our wedding night crying instead of celebrating. He insisted he only talked to maybe 5 people, just phone calls to explain what really happened. He swore he never contacted Gemma's employer, never created anonymous accounts, never coordinated anything systematic. I wanted to believe him, but the coldness in his voice when he first saw those screenshots kept echoing in my mind. I spent the next 3 days jumping every time the doorbell rang or my phone buzzed. Every shadow, every notification felt like another accusation. Theo kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying yes, even though I wasn't. The silence from Gemma's side felt like the calm before a storm. On the 4th morning, someone knocked on my door at 7:30. Through the peephole, I saw her. Gemma. She looked nothing like the woman who'd wheeled that cake across my reception floor. Her hair was limp and unwashed. Dark circles bruised her eyes. She'd lost weight. Her clothes hung loose. She wore sweatpants and a hoodie like she'd slept in them for days. I opened the door because I didn't know what else to do. She pushed past me without asking, her hand shaking as she turned to face me. "You need to call off whoever you sent after me," she choked out. "I'm sorry for what I did at the wedding. I've learned my lesson." Her voice cracked on lesson, like she might cry. "Gemma," I said genuinely, "I don't know who's doing this. I've been trying to figure it out myself, because everyone thinks it's me." She laughed then, a bitter, broken sound with no humor. "You're a liar, just like you were at the wedding. Always playing innocent, getting exactly what you want." The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, watching her fall apart in my living room, and something dark moved through my chest. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Part of me wanted to tell her to get out. And part of me, this small, terrible part, felt satisfied seeing her suffer. That last part made me feel sick to my stomach. She left without saying goodbye, slamming the door. I sat on my couch, shaking for 20 minutes. I couldn't separate my horror from my relief. That afternoon, I looked up private investigators. I needed to know the truth, even if it meant finding out someone I loved had done this, even if it meant confirming Theo had lied. I called 3 offices before I found one willing to trace anonymous online accounts. The investigator's name was printed on his card. He said it would take a few days and cost a lot. I paid the deposit anyway. 3 days later, he called me back to his office. The report sat on his desk in a manila folder, professional and impersonal. He opened it and walked me through what he'd found. The accounts were created using VPNs and encrypted email. "Shows technical skill," he said, "beyond what most people can manage." Someone knew what they were doing, how to hide their tracks, how to stay anonymous while systematically destroying someone's life. He identified at least 7 different anonymous identities, all created within days of my wedding. All went dormant 2 weeks ago, right around when Gemma's boyfriend broke up with her. The timeline made my stomach churn. Someone started immediately after watching Gemma humiliate me, spent weeks methodically taking apart her life, and then stopped when they decided she'd suffered enough. He kept talking, but I barely heard him. Messages to employers, friend groups, coordination, planning. Then he said something that made me focus again. There was an interesting detail about her boyfriend, Archer. He pulled out another page. Archer received an anonymous package. Printed screenshots of text messages between Gemma and another man, sent while she was dating him. Flirtatious, suggesting Gemma was seeing multiple people at once. I sat back in the cheap office chair. I'd never known Gemma cheated. She mentioned Archer, but never said anything about seeing other guys. This meant whoever orchestrated this campaign had access to her private messages. They'd hacked into her phone, her computer, her accounts. They'd read her personal conversations, looking for ammunition. The level of invasion made me deeply uncomfortable, even though Gemma had hurt me first. That night, Theo and I had our worst fight since getting married. I told him I was disturbed by what the investigator found. The extent of the revenge bothered me, no matter who did it. Theo stopped loading the dishwasher, his jaw tight again. Gemma deserved everything she got, he said, his voice hard. And more. She tried to destroy your reputation, our marriage, before it even started. She stood in front of our families and church community and lied about your sexual history. I understand being angry, I countered, my voice rising. But this went too far. Believing in proportional justice doesn't make me weak. Your inability to see the moral problem with hacking someone's private messages, it scares me. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Are you seriously defending the woman who humiliated you at our wedding? I'm not defending her, I shot back. I'm questioning whether this response was right. We went back and forth, voices getting louder, until I finally grabbed my pillow and went to the guest room. We slept in separate rooms for the first time ever. The next morning, my grandmother called. Her voice was shaky. I've been thinking, she said, and I need to tell you something. Theo's brother, she explained, had approached her the week after the wedding, asking detailed questions about what Gemma said and did. He claimed he wanted to make sure the family had the full story straight. She'd thought it was odd then, but didn't mention it. Now, she wondered if he'd been gathering information for a specific purpose. I thanked her and hung up, my hands numb. Theo's brother. He worked in computers, something technical I'd never fully understood. Quiet, methodical, the type of person who planned things carefully. I thought about him making that announcement at the reception, taking control when everything fell apart. How protective he'd been of me that night. I drove to his apartment without calling. He answered the door in gym clothes, surprised to see me. I walked in and asked him directly, "Did you do this to Gemma?" "No," he said immediately. "I don't know what you're talking about." I told him about the investigator's report, the technical sophistication, the timeline, what my grandmother had said. His face changed. The denial fell away, replaced by something I couldn't quite identify. Guilt, maybe, or resignation. He sat on his couch, put his head in his hands. Then he admitted everything. He orchestrated the entire campaign. He worked in cybersecurity. He had skills in digital investigation and anonymous communication. Watching Gemma humiliate me had made him so angry he couldn't let it go. Seeing my grandmother clutch her chest, my mother cry, while Gemma laughed, he couldn't stand it. He spent 2 weeks after the wedding digging into Gemma's life. He found her vulnerabilities, her secrets, her weak points. Then, systematically, he exposed her to everyone who mattered to her. He looked up at me, his eyes red. "I did it for you. For our family." He showed me everything on his laptop. The full scope. He'd hacked Gemma's social media accounts to find the cheating texts with Archer. He'd created multiple anonymous identities to contact her employer with reports about her judgment. He'd sent detailed accounts of the wedding incident to her friend groups, making sure everyone knew what kind of person she was. He'd even contacted her apartment complex, suggesting she might be unstable, planting seeds of doubt everywhere. He said he stopped when Archer broke up with her because that was enough damage. He said it so casually, like ruining someone's entire life was just a task he'd completed. The way he described it made me feel sick. "You had no right to do this in my name," I told him, my voice trembling. "You turned me into someone I'm not. You violated another person's privacy in ways that might be illegal." He looked at me with an intensity that chilled me. "Gemma violated your dignity first," he argued. "She lied about your sexual history in front of your conservative family and church community. She could have damaged your marriage and your reputation permanently." Then he asked, his voice sharp, "Are you really going to pretend you weren't relieved that she faced consequences?" I wanted to deny it completely. I wanted to say I felt nothing but horror, but I couldn't. Some part of me was relieved, and I hated myself for it. I spent the next 4 days agonizing over what to do. I barely slept. Theo kept trying to talk to me, but I couldn't look at him without thinking about his brother. I thought about calling the police, about what charges might apply. I thought about Gemma and whether she deserved this level of destruction, despite what she'd done. Finally, I called Theo's brother. "I'm not going to report you to the police," I told him. "But you need to confess to Gemma in writing and face whatever consequences she chooses. And then the harder part, I can't have a relationship with you anymore. I can't trust someone who thinks this level of violation is acceptable, even if your intentions came from wanting to protect me." Theo overheard the conversation. He stormed into the room, his face red with anger. "He was protecting our family," he shouted. "You're throwing away family loyalty over someone who doesn't deserve your concern. He doesn't deserve to be cut off for defending you." The rift between us felt enormous, maybe permanent. 2 days later, an email from Gemma. The subject line simply read, "Confession." Inside, a forwarded message from Theo's brother. He'd written her a detailed apology, explaining his motivations without excusing his actions. He listed everything he'd done, every account, every person he'd contacted. He said he was sorry for going too far, even though he believed she'd hurt me first. Gemma's message to me was short. "I'm not going to press charges. I know what I did was horrible, too. We're even now. I never want to hear from anyone in your family again." The relief I felt was complicated by guilt and sadness. Our childhood friendship was destroyed so thoroughly that nothing remained but ashes and bad memories. The morning after Theo's brother confessed, I told Theo we needed to see a marriage counselor. He resisted, saying we could work things out ourselves, that a stranger felt like giving up. "I'm not giving up," I told him, "but I can't keep having the same fight where we talk past each other." He finally agreed, though I could tell he thought it was unnecessary. Our first session was awkward, tense. The counselor, a woman in her 50s, asked us to explain what brought us in. Theo went first. He talked about his brother defending me and how I was punishing his family for protecting me, framing it like I was being ungrateful. When it was my turn, I explained what his brother had actually done: the hacking, the anonymous accounts, the systematic destruction of someone's life. I said I understood Theo's protective instincts came from love, but I needed a partner who respected my boundaries, even when defending me. The counselor asked Theo if he understood why the revenge troubled me. He said he understood intellectually, but emotionally he still felt his brother did the right thing. She asked me if I could see why Theo felt torn. I admitted I could, but it didn't make it okay. We left that session without resolution, but at least we'd said things out loud. The second session, a week later, went deeper. The counselor asked Theo what he felt when he saw me humiliated. He talked about rage, helplessness, wanting to protect me, but not knowing how. She asked if maybe his brother's actions felt satisfying because they gave him a sense of justice when he'd felt powerless. Theo went quiet, then nodded. She asked me what I felt when I learned what his brother had done. "Violated," I said, "all over again because someone had acted in my name without my permission." The counselor helped us see that we were both reacting to the same trauma, but in completely opposite ways. Theo wanted revenge to restore balance. I wanted distance to maintain my values. Neither of us was wrong, but we couldn't keep dismissing each other's perspectives. Over the next few weeks, we kept going to counseling every Thursday. Some sessions were productive. Some ended with us sitting in the car afterward in silence. Slowly, painfully, we started learning how to talk about our different values without contempt. Theo began to understand that defending me didn't mean disregarding my wishes. And I began to understand that his protective instincts weren't about controlling me, but about loving me fiercely. Some days were better than others. Some nights, we went to bed without really resolving anything, just holding each other because that was all we could do. I also knew I needed to talk to my family directly. The rumors and speculation were eating away at relationships. I called my mother first. She arrived looking worried and tired. I told her the whole truth about Theo's brother. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she started crying. She said she'd been so afraid I'd become someone cruel and vindictive, and hearing that I hadn't made her feel like she could breathe again. But she also understood why someone would want to retaliate after what Gemma did. The conversation didn't fix everything, but it helped. My grandmother was next. I drove to her house and found her in her garden. I sat with her on the bench under her rose bushes and explained everything. She patted my hand, relieved to know the truth. Then she surprised me. "I wanted to do something to Gemma myself," she admitted, her eyes hardening slightly. "Watching that girl humiliate you, I lost sleep over it." She understood the impulse to retaliate, even if the methods were extreme. We sat there, and I realized my grandmother wasn't as purely innocent as I'd always thought. She just never had the tools or opportunity to act on her darker impulses. My father-in-law was the hardest conversation. Theo set up a meeting at his parents' house. Lana made tea, then left us alone. I explained Theo's brother was responsible, and we'd only found out after it was done. My father-in-law listened, his jaw tight. When I finished, he just said he was uncomfortable with the whole situation and thought we should all just move forward and never speak of it again. He didn't ask questions. He just wanted it buried. I understood that was his way of coping, but it felt incomplete. Still, I'd done what I could to establish honesty. 3 months after my wedding, I was still processing everything. I'd wake up some mornings, think about Gemma, and feel nothing but anger. Other days, I'd remember our childhood friendship and feel sad about how thoroughly it had been destroyed. I'd learned things about myself I hadn't wanted to know. I was capable of darker feelings than I'd admitted. Relief and horror could exist in the same moment. My values around forgiveness were more complicated in practice than in theory. I hadn't orchestrated what happened to Gemma, but I couldn't pretend I was entirely sorry it did. That moral uncertainty was something I'd have to live with. I couldn't be the person who said revenge was always wrong when part of me felt satisfied. But I also couldn't endorse what Theo's brother did when it violated everything I believed about human dignity. I existed somewhere in the messy middle, and that was uncomfortable but honest. Theo and I are finding our way to a new normal. We've set boundaries with his brother. We see him at family gatherings, but things are civil and distant. Theo has accepted that I can't have a close relationship with someone who acted that way, regardless of his intentions. We've also agreed that any future conflicts will be handled together before anyone else gets involved. No more family members taking justice into their own hands. My wedding day could never be reclaimed. Some family relationships remain awkward. My father-in-law still looks uncomfortable around me sometimes. I know he associates me with drama and scandal. My grandmother asks fewer questions about my life, perhaps not wanting to hear anything else upsetting. My mother worries constantly, but I was learning that real life doesn't offer clean endings or perfect resolutions. Sometimes you just have to accept that messy and imperfect is the best you're going to get and find a way to build something good. And Theo and I, we're building that good thing, slowly. We're learning each other's boundaries, our triggers. We're practicing talking through disagreements before they become fights. We're choosing each other, even when it's hard. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined when I was planning my perfect wedding, but it's real. What would you have done if your own wedding day was sabotaged like that? And what about the revenge? Was it justified, or did it cross a line? I really want to know what you think.